This is World Comics Review, and I went here, the Kyoto International Manga Museum. So before we look at the exhibition I looked at, let's have a general look at the museum itself. So I picked this up. Okay, so the International Manga Museum is in what used to be an elementary school. So it's got 3 floors, but the 3rd floor is pretty small. And the outside area where people can go out and read manga on fake grass if it's sunny. This used to be the baseball field. And this part has kind of been extended beyond the front of the original school. So on the 2nd floor is a walkway. Now this walkway actually is outside what used to be the original school. So what's in the Manga Museum? Well, most obvious thing is of course manga. So pretty much every wall inside has loads of ones you can take down and read, although all in Japanese of course. But there is a small area of different language comics from different countries, no British though, and also manga in different languages including Polish and Russian and Vietnamese, various versions of Chinese and so on. There's some cafes too, I didn't go in those. And the Kami Shibari, which is like a picture shows where someone would stand on the street and move pictures in and out while speaking a story, which is kind of some of the later Kami Shibari artists moved into manga after World War II. And an exhibition of manga artists' hands have been plaster cast, and a kind of informative exhibit about the history of manga and stuff. On the other side, we've got the bird from Tezuka's Buddha. So this is hanging in front of what used to be the front of the school, but is now indoors, and you can go across a walkway in front of it. And inevitably they have a mascot. Message from the director, who was only recently appointed. So this is the mascot's Karasuma Miyu. So the museum is in the Karasuma district of Kyoto. So if you ever want to go there, when you can go there again. Kyoto has 2 subway lines, and they meet at a station called Karasuma Oike, and that's where the museum is, so it's pretty easy to find. And I did shoot some body cam footage of my journey there, but it's way too wobbly and noisy, so I won't bother to show you that. So what did I go there for specifically? Well, I went for this. So this is Dash, or Original Manga Drawings in Another Form. So I had no idea what it was, but I just saw all this retro artwork, so I thought it'd be good to go and see some of the retro artwork up close. So this is all in a style called shoujo, which means girl, or is used to refer to manga aimed at girls, and often characterised by these really big eyes with loads of sparkles in, especially from the 70s to the 90s. I'm not sure so many of them are like this anymore. So what is a dash exactly? Well, it's also called a genga, and it's basically a very high quality reproduction of the original artwork. So there's an increasing number of exhibitions of manga artists and their work around Japan, but even putting the original artwork in display cases in a fairly dark room with just some soft lights shining on it still kind of yellows the paper and fades the ink. So a genga, or a dash, is basically a super high quality reproduction of the original artwork, which includes all of the pencils and the pasted on sections and so on. So you can see here, it's probably a lot more digital now, but back in the 70s and 90s, when all of this artwork dates from, the speech balloons were drawn directly on and then lettered with pencils, and then before printing they'd get the lettering typed up and then cut it out and glue it on. So as you can see, it's actually stuck on, and a genga even reproduces kind of the shadow around the patches that have been stuck on, to show that they're well, stuck on patches. So yeah, genga is basically as close as you can get to the original artwork. without actually showing the original artwork, so they can have manga exhibitions without deteriorating the originals. So yeah, they had lots of this shoujo artwork, some in colour, some in wash colour, or lots just in black and white. And for 2 or 3 pages they did actually have the original next to the Genga, and there's really not much to choose between them. It's just on the original the screen tone and the patches with the lettering are kind of more 3D because they're actually stuck on. And on the Genga it's obviously a print, although a very high quality print. So you can kind of see the shadow around them, but if you look at it from the side you can see they're actually part of the print and not 3D. So anyway, let's turn back to the original leaflet. So as I said, the museum is based in a school, and I videoed a little bit of the outside of it, which maybe I'll cut in here, or maybe not. And this is the Manga Museum, which used to be a school. And over there would have been the entrance when it was a school, but now it's a museum. The entrance is actually on the other side, on a very busy and wide road. Yeah, probably not best if kids go on a Kyoto school across a huge road, so the entrance was this side. Okay, so the map of the museum also shows that we have the principal's office and the Tatsuyke memorial room. So these are memorials of the place when it was a school, so you can see what the principal's office looked like before the school was closed down in 1994. And this room has lots of photos of activities at the school going back to 1918, I think. The school itself opened in 1860 something in a different building, but in the same place. And there's also the Japanese style room, so when it was operating as a school in the Meiji, Taisho and early Showa eras, so before World War II, it was like the etiquette room for girls. And then when they had the 1964, I think, Tokyo Olympics, they got a big TV and put it in this room for the students to watch the games on. So yeah, it's kind of a interesting museum, and kind of interesting to walk around and imagine how noisy it was when it was an elementary school. It's kind of a little bit sad now, I guess, because of Corona. There was not many people in the museum, so the corridors were kind of eerily quiet. Anyway, after seeing that exhibition, which doesn't have any official books or anything, I was hoping to buy one. I went to the museum shop and got this book of Demon Slayer, which maybe I'll review, but I guess it's already been extensively covered by every other channel. It's super famous now, and there's merchandise of it sold pretty much everywhere. So the big bookshop in the Hankyu station in Osaka has lots of the English language volumes of this, but they didn't have number 4, so kind of a lucky find to get number 4 in the Manga Museum. And also I got this, sorry neighbours, so this is Giga Manga. So let's do an unbagging. So the history of manga exhibition, I've kind of gone over a bit of the history of manga in my what was the first manga video, but oh, I don't need to cut it, it's got one of these sticky openings. But in the Manga Museum they said that Giga was kind of the general term for humorous pictures and caricatures in the Edo period, so an early form of manga. And as I said in my other video, there was also kind of yellow books, red books, black books and so on, which are all kind of popular entertainment publications in the Edo period before Japan reopened up to the world in the 1860s. So yeah, this book covers the early days of this caricature type art. Smells nice. The caricature art and the early history of manga. Lots of pictures. So this is one of the they actually have this on display in the room, and I guess these are the Akahon, the red books, because they're red. And this is a Kurohon, black book, because it's black. I forgot what the categories were now. Actually, only yesterday learned in the Manga Museum that Akahon, the name Akahon, was revived. So here's a pause I can edit out. Right, so as I saw in the book, so Akahon referred to kind of early Edo period form of manga, or one of the kinds of manga in the early Edo period, which seems to be possibly aimed at young children. It's very simply written, just one picture to a page, although most of them only have one picture to a page, and just one tiny bit of writing. So actually after World War II the name Akahon was revived for things like this. So these are kind of small, cheap books of manga, kind of thin compared to the modern style. But yeah, after World War II these were a popular form of manga for a while, and these were also called Akahon, mostly because the titles are nearly always written in red. And apparently a lot of these were made in Osaka, which I didn't know until yesterday. But yeah, these are quite old, from the 50s and 60s, but and can run to about 2,000 yen each, but they're still pretty common. If you go to somewhere like Mandarake, you can find bigger A3 size binders with lots of these in. So pick the one you want and pay through the nose for it. Or if you're lucky and find a boot sale, you can maybe get them cheaper. Those two I think cost 500 yen each. So let's carry on looking through Giga Manga. So we've got some Akahon, some Kurohon. More examples of artwork. Caricature style. This looks like an iPhone case with these curved edges. Some more recognisable as a comic strip. I guess you read this way. Just one picture and a little bit of writing on each picture, each panel. This was a specific style of early manga. Lots of different people or pieces. These are like people with clothes on, formed into one picture. There's another one there. Weird caricatures. And there was another style with one giant letter which forms the central part of a picture. I've got all the names of these written in Roman letters in the other book I have, but I'm too lazy to get it. I think even this was a distinct style with its own name, of characters with wildly exaggerated heads. Going for a bit more... Wait a minute, I saw something interesting. Yeah, so primitive speech balloons, or speech, just lines coming out. So in England in the 1500s, one of the early Tinsdale Bibles had Henry VIII gifting his subjects the Bible in English, and there was like people in illustrations with kind of scrolls coming out of their mouth saying Vivat Rex, or Long Live the King. So that was another early form of speech balloons from the UK, and Japan had something similar. And this is a giant catfish, which is the god of earthquakes, so they live under Japan, and when they move it causes earthquakes. So I guess this is people trying to pacify the earthquake gods to not have earthquakes. And this is perhaps a tsunami, people being washed away in a crumbling house. Some these people fighting monsters or ghosts. This is possibly Setsubun, which is a event that's still held today in I think February 2nd, or maybe it changes each year, so only February 2nd this year. But people throw beans in their house to kind of drive out devils and bring good luck. Somebody with spots, possibly a depiction of fighting a demon that causes disease. Another proto-comic strip kind of design. Skip some pages. Is this Hokusai Manga? Possibly. Yes, oh yeah, there. So the first person to use the term manga was an artist called Hokusai. He's one of the most famous Japanese artists. He did that bigger, the painting of the wave that everyone's seen. Skip forward a bit. This is all the Edo period, from I think 1600 to I think 1863, something like that. In Japan was completely closed off from the world and basically reverting to a medieval state of existence. They had guns, but they mostly kept them locked up in a tower and only used swords. But the Edo period was kind of peaceful. No civil wars or anything for most of it. So a sort of cultural development. So here's another proto-comic. Is this Shin Hanga? Or yeah, we appear to be having primitive photo reproductions, so I guess this is after the Meiji era when some Western technology got brought to Japan. There's some learning English or Roman letters, so yeah, this must be Meiji period. So one of the what's considered the one of the proto manga styles is called ukiyo-e, which is just pictures that people put on their walls, but they were kind of printed from many wood blocks in different colours. Here's some examples of experimenting with perspective. I guess learning Western art styles. Here's how perspective used to be shown in traditional Japanese and Chinese art. It was kind of all at the same angle. And this is a proper perspective going to a vanishing point. So yeah, the ukiyo-e was kind of like this. Each colour and each section was printed with a different wood block, and it was sold fairly cheaply for people to decorate their houses with. And that kind of faded out after the Meiji Restoration, as it was called, when Japan opened up to trade with the West, and photography and Western style painting techniques came to Japan. But then after a while there was a revival of ukiyo-e called Shin Hanga, which used the same techniques. So these are possibly Shin Hanga. He's somebody dressed in some Western style clothes, like sailors. And here's the Japan Punch, which is obviously Japan had proto manga and proto comic strips before, and kind of like caricature cartoons before they opened up to the West, but are also considered as part of an important part of the history of the development of modern manga was the Japan Punch, which was produced by guys from Britain and France. So another nail in the coffin of the manga is something uniquely Japanese and just sprung into fully formed existence in 1947. Coffin from May 1883, when the Japan Punch first started. Here's another Western style publication. Yeah, some of these are early Western style magazines made in Japan were often in Japanese and English, and maybe French, German or Russian too. So we've got Japanese writing and also English published every Saturday, and priced 5 sen. So sen means 1,000, so today a sen would be 1,000 yen, but back then a sen was like if a yen is a pound, a sen is a penny. And for a while, I think for a while, all of the dollars in the world were the same amount of money, and a yen was worth $1. Back when dollars were silver, so each dollar was the same, because it was all the same amount of silver. Kibidanga, the Japanese comic paper. I've never heard of this before. Okay, I'm learning something new. I guess comic paper, they meant more like it's funny, not necessarily that it has comic strips. Tobai, journals, Tatsuyke. I guess this one was in Japanese and French. Some other Edo period. Tokyo Puck. So yeah, if Britain had Punch and America had Puck, so in the Meiji period there was a Japanese Punch and a Japanese Puck. They both got started by different people. Some weird caricatures of the Tokyo Puck. I guess this is a Mr. Delightful. Mr. Delightful. Is this a Russian? It's a Chinese. So maybe also a Russian. Perhaps an American or a German. Cowboy. This is early flying machines. This is possibly about the future. Yeah. Rip Van Urashima, returning to Japan in the 340th year of the Meiji period, AD 2207. And it's flying machines. Okay. Okay. Rip Van Urashima. Looks like something about the Russo-Japanese War. Yeah, this must have been around the time of the Russo-Japanese War, so even in 2207 he thought the Japanese and Russian commissioners would still be arguing over it. Here's a Santa. Yeah, possibly something about oh, I see, I guess Santa is supposed to be Britain and this is Japan, and Britain's passing Japan by and he's going to give him some presents of battleships. So yeah, the first and second incarnations of the modern Japanese Navy were made in Britain. Like the Mikasa battleship you can still visit today. The only preserved pre-dreadnought battleship is was made in Stoke-on-Trent, and there's still a Mikasa Street where it was made. And they were talking about renaming the Mikasa Street in World War II, but they didn't. Some how long's this video now? 24 minutes, right? But I guess I better get on with it. So this must be the Russo-Japanese War, the shining sun of Japan scaring the Russians away. Guess this is Japan kicking the Reds out. Oh yeah, Russia. Yeah, after the Russo-Japanese War, in the Siberian intervention in the in 1919. Is this about that? Maybe. Probably gonna have World War I first. Japan wasn't too involved in World War I, but yeah, in the Siberian intervention in 1919, Japan teamed up with White Russia to fight the commies. This is a manga, so this means manga, but they romanized it as manga at the time. So this must have been oh, these are obviously comic strips, so an early actual comic strip publication. Some possibly early yeah, early dedicated books of only comics. So here's an adventure story about a boy and girl on a raft going down a waterfall, landing on a magic rainbow. Oh, yeah. Bringing Up Father. This is a American newspaper cartoon strip. Oh yeah, here it's translated into Japanese, but it has the English underneath. I guess it's for teaching people English with fun illustrations. So it's a Japanese rip-off of Bringing Up Father, wearing a kimono instead. Guess we're getting into the Showa period now. So maybe Russia and America, Russia and Britain with their ships. Go a bit faster. This is the first time I've looked through this, discovering really. I guess this is a list of publication dates of stuff. Right, so that's a Giga manga, what I bought at the Manga Museum. And yeah, pretty nice trip out all told. And I should probably, I've kind of done it already, but have a proper look through this book and do a video about it. One day, One day.